And I
Oh.
think we're live right now. How's it going? Okay, we are live here on a Tuesday night. It is February 1st, 2022. We are here live tonight. It's 9 p.m. I'm Tim. I'm here with Lance. What's up, Lance?
What is going on? I just need to play the intro music here for our guest.
He loves this song.
That was the bane of my existence in middle school. I just
really. It's shocking how many Sarah songs there are. There's Sarah, another one, Sarah Smile by
Sarah Smile
Hall
is
&
my
Oates.
favorite one. There's
also, I almost went with that.
Yeah, Sarah by this one that's like Jonah and the Whale. There's Fleetwood Mac has a Sarah song. Like there's
Well, welcome to the program. Sarah Kalin, how are you tonight?
I am well. I'm exhausted, but I'm well, and I'm really excited to sit and chat with you guys, even though I don't know anything about this technology. I was like sending it to two of my besties in a group chat, and I was like, I don't know how you guys can watch this. And my one friend's like, well, not on Insta, but on Twitch and on YouTube, because it's right over here. I was like, shut up. So yeah, I don't really know what we're doing, but I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're just shooting the crap. We're shooting the crap. Crime and culture live, and you're just immersed in both of those categories nonstop, including where you are this evening. You are in an Airbnb in an undisclosed location because you are investigating the disappearance of DB Cooper.
Yeah, oh my God, I wish. No, it's not thoroughly undisclosed. I'm in an Airbnb in Mobile, Alabama. I'm actually in my favorite one. For the first couple of years, I was working with the sheriff's department here. I bounced around between hotels and Airbnbs, and then I found this one. It is a little like converted garage. It is adorable. It is tiny. I love it so much. So now this is where I come every time I come to Mobile. It's wonderful. The host is great now. He just like messages and he's like, he's under the mat, get in when you want, so yeah, I'm here. I'm working on 2 cases with the sheriff's department here, and I also have a live event at a brewery here tomorrow night.
Okay, one thing at a time here.
Sorry.
Sarah. First, you know what? First things first, I want to say that this is only the 3rd Crime and Culture Live we've done, and you're already the 2nd Sarah we've had as the guest, which is kind of remarkable. Yeah, apparently
Sarahs are the best. Yeah.
That's why there's so many songs written about you. And so what is it that you're working on in this city? What case? Can you tell us a little bit about these cases, and then I want to ask you about this live show.
Yeah, so I'm working. We're kind of hopefully near the finish line on the first case that I began working on with Mobile County, which it'll actually be 3 years next month that I picked up the case files for the first time, and that one was the 1993 murder of a woman named Renee Bergeron, And I mean, anybody who follows me on social media has heard me talk about this case a lot. And as we've gone through the process and some of the ups and downs and the roller coaster ride that this investigation has been. And like I said, I think we can see the finish line ahead of us. We are, meeting with the ADA on, possibly convening a grand jury. And so we're really kind of like, we feel like we're right there. And so it seemed time to maybe start work on another one to sort of, have a little bit of overlap and then get rolling. And what was particularly interesting when my partner with the one of the homicide detectives with the major crimes unit here and I were working on the Bergeron case last summer, so summer of 20 actually, we discovered in the files something that we had overlooked for like a year. It was just this little slip of paper. It was, a phone number jotted down and left for one of the detectives. And it said, it had this woman's name on it and it had a phone number. And it just says she was with the victim all day Friday. Well, that Friday was the last day we know she was seen alive. The last sighting we have of her is 10 o'clock that night. And so we were thrilled by this. It didn't look like anybody in the original investigation had followed up on this message. So we started scrambling. We started looking for this woman. And what we found first, unfortunately, was that she was deceased. And then we discovered that she had been murdered. And so, I kind of figured right then, I said, well, I guess this is the next one. And that's what it is now. About a year and a half later, I finally was able to collect all the files on that one. And I'm just right at the opening of that. I'm organizing it. I'm putting all the files together. I'm literally making color-coded spreadsheets to try and like make some sense out of what we know about what we have about the case so far, so that we know where to begin going forward from here. And that one was the 2000 murder of a woman named Julie Williams. So if anybody's in the Alabama area and knows anything about either of those cases, you can call the Sheriff's Department tip line, and it'll get to me, and it'll get to Major Crimes.
Wow, impressive. And it is not lost on us that we talk to people like yourself who do these great things. So congrats on that, and just like keep up the good work.
Thank you. That
Bravo.
means a lot. I really I appreciate it.
Oh, well, we appreciate you. And I just want to interject real quick. We're getting some good chat going on the YouTube chat area, which is very reminiscent of that lovely community that we built when we were on Get Vocal. So if anybody's watching, like if you want to comment, it's really cool. The chat on YouTube is really cool. People are totally digging what you do, Sarah, and loving that you're staying in an Airbnb. Do you feel like you're safer in an Airbnb?
Initially I actually felt safer in a hotel traveling as a female alone. And a lot of the times when like I said, I bounced around for a while, I would always list myself as traveling with my husband or what, what I mean? Just because inherently somebody else has the key to your place. And so I didn't want to advertise that I was a woman traveling alone. But like I said, as I found this one, I've become very friendly with the host, and I feel very safe here. So yeah, no, now it's, this has become like a little second home, my tiny little apartment. I love it.
Well, it's always someone Sarah. So be careful.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is always someone. I don't think it's going to be this guy. Just to,
Yeah. I think that's also the tagline of the latest Scream installment, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think it's going to be this guy.
What's behind you?
But I also wanted
a Daybed, a lovely. I also wanted
to just give a shout out to our YouTube page. You can find us at youtube.com/crawlspace. We got the sweet URL, just youtube.com/crawlspace. Go there, find this very video. It'll be the video that's live, and you can comment via the chat room.
The quality is great. Speaking of Airbnbs, we booked ourselves an Airbnb in Las Vegas for CrimeCon 2022. So yes, anyone listening who hasn't gone and purchased their standard tickets to CrimeCon, you can do so using the promo code Crawlspace for 10% off your standard badge. Sarah, are you going? Are we going to be able to sit down and have a giant glass of wine with you? Oh no.
Oh God, I wish. I think the schedule doesn't work out this year, unfortunately. I'm kind of like drowning now in schedule conflicts, and so unfortunately I think I'm not going to make it this year, which I was really looking forward to CrimeCon 2020, so it's heartbreaking that it's that I'm not going to be able to be at the big one coming back into things, but I'm sure down the line we'll find a way. Well, and I mean, I know you said, Tim, that we'll get into this a little bit down the road, but
Lance, let's get there right now.
We can do big glasses of wine in Boston in a couple of weeks.
Yes, you were very responsible, and you had one of your shows, your true crime nights, which my girlfriend and I attended. Your one in October, your Halloween themed one, which was unbelievable. In the back of this Turtle Swamp Brewery, and you're surrounded literally by the beer making equipment, and the beer's great. The stories you told were spot on. They were so good. And before we knew it, we had to leave early because we had to walk the dog.
I know, the poor
because
dog.
because like 2 hours flew by, and people wanted more. Like, people were still there and they wanted more. And yeah. And anyway, you scheduled it at the same place again, Turtle Swamp. And I'll let you give all the details, but you were very responsible because you were aware of the new variant of COVID and you didn't feel like you should be doing it. And the venue was super cool and emailed everybody and asked if the new date was okay.
Yeah, I was in communication with everybody up there because I'm actually doing 3 different events in the region. So I'll be at Sea Level Oyster Bar in both Salem and Newburyport on the 15th and 16th, and then Friday the 18th we'll be back at Turtle Swamp. And they were originally scheduled to be at the front end of this kind of mini tour that I'm on right now. And everybody was just a little bit panicked, and Boston was really in the throes of it in like a week or two coming into that. And we just kind of, everybody put their heads together and said, let's see if we can make some other dates work. And we were able to get it just sort of on the backside of this tour that I'm doing. So I'm so excited, honestly, to be back up there. My mom was Boston born and bred, and so I spent summers there growing up and everything. I love getting to get back to that area. And the show that I'm doing up there for the all 3 of the Boston locations is it's all maritime murders. So it's people stabbing people in lighthouses and killing people on schooners in the 19th century and stuff. It's gonna be a really fascinating, fun show.
I don't want to give away any spoilers, but could you tease like one of the stories?
Okay, so one of the ones that I dug into, and for anybody who hasn't been, basically what I do, I always say it's a little like a cross between a true crime podcast and an academic lecture, but with booze. So everybody, learns a little something, has a little fun. And if you're so inclined, you can get a little drunk. It's kind of, it's a nice combination. And so each event, I usually, it's about 2 hours, and we do have an intermission. And on each side of the intermission, I usually go into kind of mini detail on 4 or 5 different crime stories. I tend to stick fairly historical. I think it's easier for people to really engage and really dive into the details if it feels like there's a little bit of distance. And even with that distance, it's really important to me. And I say it at the outset that we're going to have fun. We're going to laugh at idiot criminals. We're going to laugh at shitty police work. But in my work as an investigator and in my work as hosting these events, I expect of myself and my audiences utmost respect for the victims at all times. So with that being said, one of the stories that jumped out at me when I was starting to kind of research them and say like, oh, what's going to fit into this theme, was one about just a massacre aboard a ship called the Mignonette. Which I am a big fan of raw oysters with mignonette, like the little vinegar and shallot sauce and everything on it. So I can tell you we're gonna kind of get into there, and the combination of I don't know, eating oysters or eating people or whatever might
I'll eat anything with mignonette.
With mignonette, that's right. But that was the name of the ship. So yeah, no, it's gonna be fun. I also, in this one, I had a little bit of fun. I almost never, in fact, I never have before gone anywhere near supernatural, because it's just not my wheelhouse. It's not to say that I don't believe in certain things or whatever, but it's not my area of expertise, and so I tend to stay away from it and really focus on literally true crime. But on this one, I really wanted to get into some of the legendary stuff in some different lighthouses around the world, because when I was a little kid, up until I was about 8 years old, I lived on an island off the coast of Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia. And the Peggy's Cove Lighthouse is the most photographed lighthouse in the world, but it also has this great kind of legend about its haunting and everything like that. So I had a little bit of fun going into some of the different, curses of lighthouses around the world. So it's going to be fun, I think. And I think the Boston area people are going to really, really love getting into it.
Okay. Yeah. And I think you might be right. Can you give us a little bit more about this Peggy's Coast lighthouse? I assume it's majorly haunted and terrifying.
Peggy's Cove. It's not terrifying. So the legend of Peggy's Cove that I remember, learning as a very little kid, probably 2 or 3 years old, I remember the story. So the story was that there was a shipwreck, and the only survivor of the shipwreck was a little girl named Peggy, and some locals raised her. And when she was an adult, she got married to one of the fishermen there. There it is. There's Peggy's Cove. And when she was sort of sad one day, and the legends vary on what had caused her sadness. There are actually some that say one of her children had died, and so, you know what I mean? Like that sort of varies. But for whatever reason, she's sitting down by the water, and she's very forlorn and sad. And so her husband discovers her there and wants to cheer her up, and just kind of starts acting the fool. And he's sort of dancing and singing for her and trying to get her to dance. And he slips and falls in the water and drowns. And Peggy is so distraught, having already been in a state, that she hurls herself into the sea after him and dies there with him. And the legend is, the haunting is that people say from the boats coming in that they can see Peggy walking around on the lighthouse. And it's always very specific that she's wearing a blue cape, and she always looks as though she's on the precipice of a jump. And of course, as a little kid, that was instilled in me. And so I was positive, as an only child, by the way, living on an island with no other children around. It's a very active imagination type situation. And so I constantly just had I was like, oh, I saw Peggy at the lighthouse today, so. But there are some just really great stories about different lighthouses around the world. So we're gonna have some fun with it.
Have you seen the movie The Lighthouse?
Is that the one with Robert Pattinson?
Yes.
I haven't yet, but there is, and my mind is blanking because there was a whole slew of them in one, but there is another movie that came out about one of the other lighthouses that I cover in this, where 3 of the keepers simply vanished. And to this day, nobody has any idea what happened to them. And there was another movie made just a few years ago. It wasn't Tom Hiddleston. It was somebody else big. Gerard Butler, I think, was in it. And it was sort of like, it was like a theory of what had happened. And it involved, of course, murder and treasure and everything like that. That one was early 20th century.
Do you ever have an urge to work in a lighthouse? I kind of do.
I'm very drawn to them. I think, because of early, just sort of formative years experience. I absolutely love them. So, I see the Airbnbs around the world where you can stay in a lighthouse, and I am absolutely determined to do that at some point.
That would be so fun. Let's back it up a little bit. How did you decide to do these live shows, this grueling tour? You're like
something
Van Halen in the 80s.
I don't know about all that. Yeah.
Did the lady in blue inspire you?
I'm performing for tens. So no.
Van Halen was also at one point.
At one point, right? It was born before COVID. In the year before COVID, I have a little spot in Philly that I like to go to regularly, called the Devil's Den in South Philly. Shout out to the Devil's Den. It's just a fabulous restaurant and pub, and they've got this gorgeous double-sided fireplace. And, because I work from home for myself, essentially, sometimes I like to get out of the house and not work in pajamas with Friends reruns on in the background, all day long. And so I would go sit at Devil's Den by the fire and just work on, whatever case stuff I was doing. And the owner and I got friendly and got chatty. And one day I was there working, and somebody came in pitching one of those, like a corporate thing, but the lunch and learn things, and they were like, oh, well, we can, you guys can participate in this and people can come do bonsai or candle making or something like that. And Erin, the woman who owns Devil's Den, she's like, okay, yeah, I'll think about adding us to your list or whatever. And when she left, when the woman pitching it left, I leaned over, I said, you should let me do a lunch and learn and I'll just talk about murder. And that was kind of how it was born. She said, absolutely, let's do this. And so initially I started doing them just at Devil's Den, and then another just honestly legendary place in Old City, Philly called the Khyber Pass Pub reached out and asked me to start doing them there. And so we were kind of and then Evil Genius Brewing asked me. So it was just sort of local in Philly, and it was just starting to ramp up, and then COVID hit. And obviously nobody was going anywhere. And then, last summer, as people were starting to mingle and gather again, my places in Philly asked about doing some more. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to get back into it. And just kind of on a whim one day, I started sending out information to some, pubs, and breweries, first here in Mobile, because I knew I was going to be down here for work anyway. And then in Atlanta, where I have family, I kind of like chose places where I could go on the cheap and crash with friends or family and just, try and do this. And it's just kind of been a mini explosion since then. I mean, I'm going back to Iowa City next month. I've got a couple of regular spots in Chicago. I just booked a spot in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So I'm just kind of just starting to take it out there.
So who's your manager? Who does all the booking for you? Who does? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you how do you find the places?
Tired.
How do you find
Anybody
a place in
want to
Arkansas?
volunteer for this position until I can afford to pay you for it?
There you go. Put it out there. Anyone wants to be your Sarah's manager, her booking agent / manager.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with WME for podcast and TV and stuff. I don't think I'm big enough for WME, like speaking. I think I'm not quite there yet. And I do have just a fabulous PR firm, Katie Brown Marketing, who is doing it pro bono right now because she believes in supporting women who she just believes in the women in particular. And I found her through the good graces of the fabulous Rabia Chaudhry. She handles Rabia's PR, and Katie said, yeah, I will do this just to help you kind of get off the ground. And so she's handling all the PR, which is just beyond kind. She's incredible.
And so do you tailor your shows based on like the time of the year or the location? You try to do it like geographically appropriate?
I can. So what I tell, event spaces and venues, when they're interested, is you can commission a show. You can pick a theme off the top of your head, and I can probably put together a 2-hour show, covering crimes that match that theme. I also have a sort of a repertoire of ones that I have already built. And yes, some of them are holiday related. Obviously, this one that kicks off tomorrow is called Romance is Dead, and it's Black widows, lethal lovers, and couples who kill. And I've got some geographical ones as well, specific. Obviously, it started in Philly with Felonious, PHEL, and we're revamping Felonious in March in Philly. And Halloween, and I've got a Christmas one and stuff like that. But as I'm moving more out west, I'm thinking, gosh, I guess I got to put something together, a Midwest and Plains. I've got a Chicago show, Windy, Wild, and Wicked. So it can be just about anything. The Maritime one I did just because I wanted to, and then I went to Boston Places and said, hey, you want this show? Basically.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Where do you find the time to do that? Because you write them all, and you have your PowerPoint set up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that sounds kind of flip, but I just squeeze it in where I can as I'm coming up on a show, and in the last couple of weeks before a show, it's like, okay, it's time to write the show now, and then I will focus on that primarily until that one's done, and then either move on to the next one, or I've got some fiction stuff I'm working on, and do that. It just sort of, I go from one one project to another, sometimes multiple a day, but I like to work, so.
Very cool.
I thought he was about to play Sarah again. I saw him grab it.
No, you won't know when it's coming.
Oh, good, great.
Well, it sounds like such a versatile show. Do you have a favorite case or show to do?
So this past Sunday night, I have one called Gnarly Carnage, which is all 80s crimes. And that one I really enjoy, in part because I'm a Gen Xer, I'm a kid of the 80s. I love the music. I love the nostalgia of it all. But I also, I tend to try and stay away from really big, well-known cases. I kind of try and everybody's seen everything on ID and everything, you know what I mean? There's no sense really to me in going back and spending only 10 minutes talking about a case that everybody's seen, multiple documentaries on. So it was really interesting to me to dive into the 80s and talk about the context of that time frame and what was happening in terms of crime fighting and in terms of criminal behavior at that time. As we talk about it as the golden age of the serial killer, and why was that a time when it was sort of in a growth spurt, and so some of the cases in that show are really interesting. And like I said, a lot of times, it starts out with sort of a lighthearted nature, but just by virtue of the work that I do, it can get a little dark. And I'm still trying to teach people something. So I really like that one because it's mostly very unknown cases and people really learn a lot from them. And then there's one really super famous, one of the crimes of the century of the 80s that I tackle on that. And I really like examining it from a modern perspective and from being able to see how badly the victim was treated in that case by the media and stuff like that. So that one's up there, definitely is one of my favorites. But I think the Maritime might be my new favorite.
You just brought up something I want to get to, but Shannon said shoulder pads are an 80s crime. So I don't know if you include shoulder pads in your show, but
I do not
well
include shoulder pads. And I even talk about in the opening how I was very upset when banana clips came back into fashion a couple of years ago. I was like, no, not everything about the 80s should come back, but I'll take Duran Duran and Cyndi Lauper. So
you said the 80s were like the heyday or the serial killers, and there was a reason for that, and you covered that in your Halloween show. And I thought that was so fascinating. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I don't know how in the weeds or boring your poor audience wants to get into and listen to me babble, but
as boring as possible, I
okay.
think.
All right, buckle up, guys. So there are a number of different factors. Just like anything, there's sort of a perfect storm that took place between the 70s and the 90s that allowed for so much of that to really fester and spread. And even saying that, it's important to recognize that serial killing did not just happen in the 70s through the 90s, and it was not just smatterings of it throughout time. It is part of the human condition. There is just always going to be a certain percentage of the human population of the animal human being that is going to be wired differently and is going to be driven this way. But that being said, Peter Vronsky, who is he's kind of technically a crime journalist is how he started, but he's really become an expert in serial killing, and not actively killing, but in serial killers
that we know of.
Studying them, right? And he's talked a lot about a couple of the theories that have come about, and they really make a lot of sense to me and everything that I've researched over the last 20 years. Yeah.
Can we, if this was the Family Feud, could we give any guesses? Could we is there a ranking? I really just want to say highways, ding, ding.
No, that certainly seems to be a factor. And, no joke, Lance knows this from the Halloween show. There's always a friggin' panel van. Like it is not just a stereotype. It is a stereotype based in reality. But no, what Vronsky talked about, and I think it was not uniquely his idea, but it was something that he kind of pulled together from other academics as well, is that there was a combination of factors, particularly in young boys who were the children of World War II veterans. And so some of these factors included World War II vets coming home from a brutal war at a time when there was not even an acknowledged thing such as PTSD. There certainly was not an encouragement for soldiers and for veterans to get any kind of treatment or for their families to get any kind of support. And so not by any means am I saying, I mean, my husband is a veteran, who was in Iraq. I'm not saying that veterans are inherently violent or anything like that, not at all. But in some who came home and were wrestling with the demons of the war, that could manifest in the way that they interacted with their family, sometimes through violence or sometimes through withholding. And so, we know that those sorts of family dynamics can affect kids, right? Particularly in how boys express themselves. Okay, so that was one bucket. And then the other big bucket was the pulp fiction true crime magazines of the time. Okay, so in the 50s in America, there was almost, you almost had to have a personal dealer to get good porn, basically. Like now we think about, you can get it anywhere, and even before the internet, you could get it at any convenience store. Like porn was not really all that hard to come by. But at that time, anything remotely sexual was considered off limits, except these true crime magazines. And they were in drugstores. They were right out there in the open. They were marketed to preteen and teenage boys. And the imagery on them is particularly violent. It is particularly violent towards women. And it is often quite sadistic in nature. And what you have is an entire generation of boys coming of age, coming into sexual maturity and sexual experimentation, where that may be the only way that they're fooling around at home is with these images. And so, and again, not by any means does this have the same effect on every single boy, but if you have just that right stew where you've got a kid who is predisposed towards sociopathy, or maybe you have one of the other factors, like the head trauma or whatever, you then, if you add into that kid's unique bucket, withholding affection from a parent or violence in the home, and then you add into this thing that the minute this kid begins to experiment with sex, he is doing so, he is causing an actual neural pathway link in his brain between sexual gratification and sadism. And literally, in some of the images they talk about, you can see the actual terror in the women's eyes in these drawings and in these paintings. And we have heard serial killer after serial killer talk about the toolbox killers that we talked about at Halloween were an example of this, where one of the guys literally said, I just want to see it in her eyes in that moment right before I kill her. I want to see that fear. And, it's just this perfect storm. And so that can happen to any generation where you get some of these people. But at that time, you just had an abundance of it because it was the baby boomers, because it was, a whole population of men coming home from war at the same time. And because that was the only accessibility to sort of pornographic images for kids who otherwise it's a perfectly healthy thing for them to engage in. Yeah, so that sort of answer your question. So then those guys came of age in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Those were the guys who then were, by then they had escalated beyond, the peeping or whatever their lower level sexual offenses were, and had escalated to violence and homicide.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the .com era and Silicon Valley and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and they all were born at a certain time that put them right in that wheelhouse,
Yeah.
right in that time frame where and all of the circumstances aligned.
Right,
and it's
where
funny
they
you
all
brought that
became
up.
serial killers.
Yeah, they became serial killers. There's a
no, but they helped create the new batch of weirdos and dangerous people that we have destroying everything. But that's
Oh, right, because of technology.
Yeah, and I mean, I am also somebody who loves it in spite of my inability to use it very well.
There's a fantastic book called The 10-Cent Plague, and it's about the history of those pulp novels, pulp magazines by David Hajdu, Hajdu. And it talks about that. They actually had like that was a sought after job, was to create those covers that were more violent than the last one.
Yeah.
Always a giant man.
And yes.
Yeah, a giant man, like
bondage and abuse.
Yeah. And they talked about like if you thought that you were going too far with it, go further.
Go to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just in drugstores, they were just anywhere. They were marketed to the kids.
Yeah. And it was like some of the artists were like appalled at themselves because they're drawing this guy. In one hand, he's got the severed head of a woman who still has that fear look on her face. Yes. And the other hand, he's like strangling another woman. And there's like, blood all over the floor. It's like it was what's torture porn. It's like
that's exactly
torture porn of the day.
It was like pre-snuff films, basically. It was a perfect storm. And so that gave us a higher than at other times throughout history percentage of them, I think. And I think, the fact is, thanks to the work of Dr. Burgess and John Douglas and Robert Ressler and everybody, in the initial 20-year study at the BSU, we are better at catching them earlier in their careers now. So, certainly not by any means all of them, obviously, but it is harder for them to get to the body counts that they used to. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't if they went unchecked, but because so many more agencies and investigators are either have the knowledge themselves, or they're outsourcing to people who do, and to agencies who do, we're starting to be able to catch these guys earlier in their career. I mean, it's not Minority Report. We can't, we can't put people in prison forever because of peeping, but we can, once we begin to see those first couple of violent sexual assaults or sexual homicides, the linking, not always, but a lot of times happens more quickly, and so they're able to be stopped when otherwise they, as we know, they would not stop. They would just keep going, and so I think that's why people think it has sort of died off. It's just we've gotten a little bit better, not good enough yet, but a little bit better at stopping them earlier on.
Well, thank goodness we can't lock people up for peeping, because my goodness, I would not be sitting here today.
Well, but there's a difference. There is a difference between healthy sexual curiosity in teenagers, right? Or even in adults. And it's sort of like the Mapplethorpe thing and the Supreme Court about like, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And I sort of feel that way sometimes with like, potentially escalatory behavior. Like, it's hard for me to say to you, well, there's a difference between a boy who peeps at his sister's friends when she sleeps over versus a guy who is watching with binoculars a neighbor's window for months at a time, because sometimes that line is not quite as obvious. Sometimes it is a little blurrier, and sometimes it's just years and years of training where you're like, I might not be able to articulate it to you, but I know the difference when I see it. And you don't read as a dangerous voyeur to me.
No, it's the mask that will slowly begin to slip. No, it's funny that I made the joke about that, but you had like such a thorough answer. It kind of, I'm sure there's some people out there who will hear that and be like, oh, good.
I told you I can get very boring very quickly.
No, it's not boring at all.
Untrue. I just I like Lance felt like making jokes too, just
By
to
all
sort of
means.
lighten the mood. And
Yes,
but
jokes.
they were just gonna come at like my expense, like that one, and just be weird. So we'll get there.
No, and look, I welcome it, and
Yeah.
I get jokes from the audiences, and I will even get heckled, and I will heckle right back. So, yeah, like I said, we can have fun and talk about these things and learn about these things at the same time. I definitely don't mean to
Okay.
like steer away from that by all means.
Okay, so right before we went live, you were just talking about how the police that you work with closely, they're all a bunch of jelly donut eating people. They don't even know their ass from their elbow, and you're just in there bossing them around, showing them what's up. And then we went live, and you toned it back a little bit. But can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, no, just a worthless bunch of losers. No, honestly, and anybody who follows me on social media will know that I'm not here for propaganda, and I am not an apologist. And I spent 10 years as a patrol officer and a detective. I've done and I worked third shift. I worked in the middle of the night handling bar fights and domestics and gun runs and stuff. And I worked with some incredible officers, but I am also keenly aware that this country needs its policing system ripped out at the roots and almost started over. There are tremendous problems, tremendous inequities, and I am not here to apologize for any or look the other way or talk to people about a few bad apples. Okay. I will say though that in almost 25 years of law enforcement, both on the inside and on the outside, I have never worked with a team of not just the detectives, but the culture of the agency. It's not perfect. They make mistakes, and they have deputies who make mistakes and everything. But the culture from the top down, right, which is the most important way to handle this stuff at the Mobile County Sheriff's Office, like, believe it or not, like Deep South Alabama is very small p progressive. It is a very open dialogue, a very transparent relationship with the community. When there is a mistake, like a year or two ago, there was a deputy who got arrested for drugs, and like he was dealing drugs. Well, the agency arrested him. They did a press release. They talked not just about like, oh, we got him or whatever. They talked about, here are the problems within our own system that allowed for this guy to slip through the cracks. Here is how we are going to remedy those. Please contact us if you have had problems with like the level of transparency and the trust within the community that's been built up over the last decade or so is like nothing I have ever seen. And I think even my being here is proof of that. I don't know another agency that has said to a civilian, come on in, full access. What do you need? We value the particular set of skills and expertise that you have, and we want to solve these cases for real. This agency had a ton of corruption in the past. They had 2 sheriffs in a row who left under indictment. This is things were not done well for a really long time here, and they have worked diligently to reestablish a relationship with the community. And they're very open about that. Yay, Mobile.
Okay. That was my actual question, actually. Like, how do you find yourself working with them, basically, and how is that arrangement? How does that happen? Because it seems pretty unusual.
I don't know. I've never heard of it anyplace else. I mean, agencies will sometimes have a civilian expert, who comes in and contributes in one way or another. But
we're called upon all the time.
all the
like
time. Sure.
every day, actually. I mean, we get our texts are blowing up right now.
From the FBI.
Police.
Art Roderick is calling me right now.
The CIA, the FBI, they all want a piece of us.
The IRS especially. Non-stop calling me.
Yeah. It's just, government agency after government agency, hitting up our
following
phones.
me.
Student loans are the ones that I'm just like, guys, I don't really know that I can help you with financial crime.
Those ones we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, no, I don't even know what you're talking about.
They've been incredible. I love this team. It's when I got into law enforcement, I very much had a kind of romanticized view of it that I think a lot of people do. I got into it because of a belief that I had. And this sounds very cheesy, but I was young, I was in my 20s, and I wanted to be the person who could be there for somebody at their worst moment, who could help protect somebody who, whether it was short term or long term, whatever the situation was, whether it was violence or just societal, could not protect themselves. And that's what I saw my role as. I tried, every arrest I made, every traffic stop I made, I always tried to be really cognizant of the fact that, like, this is my job. This is 8 hours a day for me. For most people that I interact with, not all of them, obviously, especially in the middle of the night, but for most people, this is among the worst day of their life if the police are there. This is what, and so I always kind of tried to at least have a little piece of that in the back of my mind when I was interacting with people, right? Like, people don't deal with the police every day. They don't think of you as like a normal person or whatever. It is a scary encounter. And so I always kind of tried to be aware of it. I mean, it's not to say I can't be mean when I had to be, but for the most part, I took that role really seriously. And I thought going into it that it was going to be like a tremendous amount of brotherhood, fraternity in the sense of like taking care of each other, but more importantly, that the thin blue line represented us taking care of people, not us circling the wagons. You know what I mean? And I was lucky. I worked in a pretty good agency. I worked, that their abuse towards the public was not tolerated, and so I was still kind of rosy-eyed when I left that and went into academics and everything. And obviously my eyes have opened over the last decade, just, like a lot of people. But what I have found with this agency, with working Captain Birch, who's actually now running to become Sheriff Birch of the Mobile County Sheriff's Office, Captain Birch and this team are what I thought I was getting when I got into law enforcement 25 years ago.
Well, that is so cool. And I think you've actually convinced Tim to reverse his stance on 100% defunding the police. He wants to defund the police and NPR.
Yeah, I'm very firm with NPR.
Striking a weird balance.
Yeah, I mean, my foot is down all the way to the floor on NPR. I think
he's dug his heels in on NPR.
Yank that.
Get rid of it.
Of their budget, man. Those bitches don't need that. Tote that.
I'm coming.
My ass.
I'm coming for PBS next, Sarah.
I was gonna say something about Bugs Bunny, but I think he's at HBO now, or not Bugs Bunny. Yeah. Sorry, Birds.
PBS.
Yes. Well, what is the name of the place that you are doing this next live show?
So the very next live show is tomorrow night at Iron Hand Brewing in downtown Mobile. And since you have the little postcard up there, I will tell you, and I'm obviously not from here, but I love this little city. I've kind of adopted it. I always say that if New Orleans and Key West had a baby, it would be Mobile. It is actually the home of Mardi Gras in America. It is the birthplace of Mardi Gras in America. So we're coming into Mardi Gras, and that's going to be big here, but it's just a beautiful little city. So Iron Hand is right downtown. It's there with the fountains and the wrought iron. And where did he go? I'm very nervous.
Oh,
there
here I am.
Okay. I was thought he was going to show up with shoulder pads or something. So that's at Iron Hand Brewing tomorrow night in downtown Mobile. And then from there, I go back to Philly. I've got 3 shows in Philly and 1 at River Horse Brewing in Ewing, but a couple of those are sold out. So the best thing to do is go to my website, and I've got links to all the events. And then from there, I go up to Boston for the Maritime shows.
Oh, which hold on one sec. Bam.
Ooh, the Maritime shows.
Iron Hands logo.
Oh, Tim's a ghost. Where'd he go?
The lady
Is
in
he
blue.
Peggy?
Yeah, she took
Do you
me.
have a blue dress? You can be Peggy.
There's one
It's
back here.
periwinkle blue.
There's one back here. Don't put it past me.
All right.
Yep.
Periwinkle blue. Anybody on that?
Oh, I love that color. Cornflower. There's another
Is
one.
that a reference for something? Of something?
Yes, it's what Norman Bates's mom was buried in.
Oh, periwinkle blue. Oh, that's right. Okay.
I do a
did
great
not-
impersonation of Norman Bates's mom.
You won't do it.
Okay, yeah, this is when he's carrying her to the fruit cellar. You think I'm fruity?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Oscar goes to.
I'm also working. She has another long speech, but I'll save that for another night.
Okay, well done.
Yeah. Right. I had a question about well, shoot, I can't remember it.
Well, I want to know more about the insides of this police department before we officially call for a complete shutdown. Just kidding. I'm completely
Defund everybody
kidding.
except the Mobile County Sheriff's Office. How's that?
And Crawlspace Media.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Fund Crawlspace Media.
I think you want
the
that
opposite.
PBS money to come over to you guys. That's what
That
it is.
sweet PBS money.
Maybe.
They're
So,
not using it.
how many donuts per day on average does a cop eat?
I can say proudly that in 10 years in uniform, I made a point of never once consuming one while on duty. It's just too big a stereotype.
Oh, I noticed the on duty though. Okay.
I mean, everybody
Same
eats
question.
donut. But I refuse to be seen eating
You-
a donut. I was much more
realize-
likely to be busted at Chipotle than
Sorry.
there we go.
I think it's way funnier if a cop is eating a donut off work hours, to be honest.
I do remember. So one of the guys that I worked with at the agency in Ohio that I was with, we were sitting. You know how you'll see the cruisers sitting like window to window in the median, and you think they're just gossiping, and they are. But we're like, running radar or whatever, and I shit you not, Krispy Kreme truck goes flying by, and Dell just looks at me and goes, "Come on!" Like he's like. It was going like 20 over the speed limit. He's like, I have to go stop it. But he's like, I can't, man. It's going to be nothing but people driving by laughing while I'm walking up to the Krispy Kreme truck.
That's
So,
fantastic. Where did
is
that
it-
stereotype originate?
Truth.
What did you say?
he
I said truth.
truth. I don't know where it originated, but Chief Wiggum certainly helped proliferate it.
He did, yes,
Yeah.
Chief Wiggum.
And Ralph
Um,
Wiggum, by the way, the owner of my heart. I hope that someday he chooses me. I love Ralph Wiggum so much.
He's like the dark horse of the Simpsons, you know?
He's so great. He's so great. Oh, I bet my Wookiee.
Well, okay, now we're in the culture part of the night. The Simpsons have been on for 78 years.
The Simpsons started when I was in high school. I am 47 years old.
Yeah.
The Simpsons
Too
have
long?
always been on. They're like Jack Torrance in The Shining. He's always been
yeah.
there.
Too
The
long?
Shining, if you will.
Not long enough.
I haven't watched it in years. I know
haven't
there was a
watched it in
point
years
that
either.
it felt like it had slipped a lot.
Mm.
But SNL slips sometimes and then it pulls itself back up and gets really funny again. I don't know if you watched
Oh.
this past weekend, but the Badminster Dog Show, I was like beside myself with laughter at that one.
That
like
was
the shaky.
yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, SNL varies by sketch. I feel like. Yeah.
I feel like maybe we're coming back into like they found their groove because the last couple have been pretty consistent. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your
I don't
favorite
know. I haven't
SNL
watched it for
comedian?
a while. What's that?
Who's your favorite SNL comedian all time?
I feel like there's no one can beat Eddie Murphy because he was 21 and he was the lead of that show, and he was a movie star at the same time, becoming a movie star, and he guest hosted SNL while he was a cast member. There's no one else that, and that was because I believe there was a cancellation or something like that. But
something like that. I kind of forgot about that. I mean, for my money, it's almost got to be Kristen Wiig.
Oh,
she's great.
She's great.
Yeah,
Epic.
oh my God, she just left this year. She's the girl at the party that you don't want to be talking to. Oh my God, I can't believe her name, only because I'm sitting here thinking about it. It's fallen out of my head. Long dark hair. This year was her first year off in a long time.
First year off. Maya Rudolph? No.
But Maya Rudolph is a goddess among mortals.
Yeah. Kate McKinnon's pretty great. She's still there.
Fantastic. There's so many. I can't believe it. Somebody on YouTube, please help me. She does the girl at the party. And Che, if you know who I'm talking about. She's absolutely gorgeous. She just wrote a book. Oh my God.
Shelley Duvall.
No, that was not the correct answer.
Anne Rice.
Yes.
Also not the correct answer. Not sure she was ever a regular cast member.
It was.
Let's see. Cicely Strong.
Cicely Strong.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's
my God. I'm the worst person alive, because if you had asked me 10 minutes ago, I would have said her name as my, just about my favorite. But yeah, no,
she's good. But I'm sorry, we cannot accept that as a final answer as being one of the best.
Is my final answer.
Okay. That we will accept that. Cicely Strong is great. Don't get me wrong, but doesn't have the longevity, the career markers,
the gravitas.
Yeah. So no shade on her. It's just she's not in that range yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
My favorite's Charles Rocket.
Now, who was that?
Was that the dog from the medical category on Saturday?
He was in the Eddie Murphy era. I think he was only maybe half a season, and he got fired for dropping the F-bomb.
Oh wow.
But he went out in style.
Yeah,
I meant to ask you guys before we came on the air what the language barrier was. I've been trying to sort of censor myself, but not very well.
On here? Anything. Oh, you can say whatever you want.
Oh, okay, good. I mean, I don't know. You know your audience better than I do, and I don't want to offend, but fuck is my favorite word in the English language.
It's a great.
After goblin. Goblin is my actual favorite word.
Goblin, the troll thing.
Mm-hmm. It's just a funny word.
Yeah,
it's a great funny word.
Goblin, it's just funny. I love it. Who is that? Is that the guy who got fired from half the season? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I believe
there?
so.
I really need to step up my background game. The daybed is not bringing in much.
Well, hold on. Why don't you take it? I really want to get a good look at that daybed. Can you clear the screen for a sec? Yeah, there we go. That's good. That's a nice daybed.
It's a nice daybed, and there are every season. The host kind of does it for a little bit of season. So there's little Mardi Gras beads hanging. I'm not very good at that. There's some Mardi Gras beads. So if you go out to do Mardi Gras stuff, there's a Mardi Gras tree. See, it looks like
that's lovely.
It's the purple and green and gold. Yep. So and at Christmas it was very Christmassy in here.
Well, we're here. We're with you.
Hey, Sarah.
Well, this is awesome. I seriously, I love this. I could do this with you guys every week.
Well, yes, this is great. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight from Mobile, Alabama, live on Crime and Culture. It's Sarah Kalin. And thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Thank you to the chat room. Thank you to those folks who are watching on replay. And yeah, we're going to be doing this every other Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Join us. Crime and Culture.
I feel like we're hitting our stride with this here too. And what do we got coming up? You know what? I wrote it down.
It's Katherine Jones in 2 weeks. Yep.
The Katherine Jones from the
Amazing.
Campaign for the Fair Sentencing of Youth.
Yes.
Amazing.
Co-director of Outreach. Her title is really intimidating.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Right. Good for her. That's important work, and I'm glad you guys are doing that.
She's a force. She's a force, and
I love it.
I mean, my goodness. Yeah, she's a great human being. But this has been fun. This has been goddamn fun.
Thank you. I love hanging out with you guys. Tim, are you coming to this next one? You didn't come in October.
I did not. Yes, I will definitely be doing my best. I know you have
small children. That's
yes.
The only reason you were forgiven.
That is part of my issues lately. Yeah. Another part is I live a little further away.
Oh.
But yeah, so we will see. I don't know. I'd have to look at the calendar and
you guys
cross my fingers that COVID stays away during the few days before that, because God knows it's just a matter of time. It's just, every other week or something like that.
They're calling it stealth Omicron. I'm like, nobody needs that. Like, this is ridiculous.
You know what they should call it? I wish I had my music set up, but it's not set up. They should call it Goblin Crom.
I'd be a big fan of that. I'd still want another booster. I'm not interested. So far, knock on wood, I've made it through everything. So I'd like to stick with that. Can I shout out my website so people
Yes.
Okay. Yes. It's just KalenInvestigations.com. And if you /events, that's got the calendar, and it'll have ticket links to anything that's got tickets available, and all the upcoming shows. I also have a new artist out of Chicago that I've been commissioning. She's going to start. There's a couple pieces up there now, but she's going to slowly, bit by bit, create individual artwork for all of my shows. Each one has like its own unique artwork. She is balls to the wall incredible. Her name's Scarlett Tillian. I'm so excited. So you guys can go see the Maritime show and the women's the Warriors and the Wicked, the celebration of women in true crime. She's already done the artwork for those. They're up. They're incredible. And so then I'm going to start doing merch, you guys. Once we get all Scarlett's artwork together. So yeah, go to there. And there's also like links to my social. There's even contact form if you're like very old fashioned and want to do it that way instead of through Twitter or Instagram. But if people have questions or are interested in anything, I never get tired of talking about this stuff. So feel free to reach out.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much
for joining us.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate it.
Aww.
Thank you. We do as well.